Well, Rob, this is certainly the end of an era, isn't it? So sad to report that a few days back, Hulk Hogan, the immortal Hulk Hogan, passed away at age 71. And to guys like me and Rob England, it's a big deal. Guys that have been collecting wrestling for a long time, guys at a very high level of collecting. A lot of us guys that have been around, you know, by hook or crook, invariably we collect Hulk Hogan. So today, Rob and I are going to talk about Rob England. Everyone knows who we are, Wrestling Card King. We're going to talk about sort of the vintage lineage of Hulk Hogan's cards, and then Rob's got something special, a surprise for us at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to trace sort of the first cards of Hogan when he came, when he first arrived, and we're going to go from 1981 right through to 1989. Now people disagree on when the vintage era stops and when the modern era starts, but I figured that that gives us a sort of good cross section of some of his biggest cards. So let's go right back to the beginning. A young Hulk Hogan in 1981, he had three cards. He had the paper card in the Sports Review magazine series. He had the 1981 Poppy Karaja, how do you say it? Kajiwara, and sometimes we call it Popey, sometimes we call it Poppy, but that's a very popular card. The Poppy is popular. It's the one with that came with the figures in the series. And then the last one is also a very, very hot card, the 1981 Marusho. So let's start there, Rob, with those first three cards. Do we know which one of those was actually first?
We really don't. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me back. It's just been a very surreal week.
Yeah, I'm
And I
sure.
think what happens as far as someone like Hulk Hogan and just professional wrestling in general, it's mixing disbelief with reality. And Hulk Hogan was our hero
Absolutely.
in the pro wrestling world. And we're not used to our heroes passing away, or if they do, if it's someone like Spider-Man or Superman, someone could put on a costume, but Hulk Hogan is gone,
Oh,
and there's never going to be another one. So I think it's kind of just a really different feeling that a hero passed away.
has there been a bigger wrestler passing in our days, Rob? It's hard for me.
There's no
It's
way.
hard for
Hulk
me to
Hogan is
compare you
number
to
one in
Hulk.
professional wrestling. There's, a lot of guys that have had impact, but the explosion of pro wrestling was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
to me, that's undisputed.
Flair's still with us, and of course, when you talk about the goats, Undertaker and Austin and Cena and Rock and Brett and Shawn and these kinds of names come into the discussion. But for me, Flair and Hogan were always sort of on a different tier. Like I find that if you're into WWE, like I grew up watching Mid-South, so I was a Flair guy. I was into the Horsemen when I was a kid. Obviously, by the time Hulkamania started, I was already in university, so that time had passed. So I got to live through both eras, and I always thought that those two guys were it. And I've been watching ever since, and I do appreciate the guys that have come and gone since then. But for me, Hulk Hogan is a very, very tragic loss to the wrestling card community. And
But Flair said it in a recent interview, and that the only kind of jealousy he had with Flair or with Hogan was that Hulk made a lot more money than him.
yeah, right.
So by that fact alone,
Yeah,
that puts Hogan
puts him
above
higher.
Flair.
Right,
And he doesn't blame Hogan for that. He blames the promoter,
right,
right?
right,
That he
right.
didn't make the money.
Well, Vince might have been a more shrewd promoter back in the day. So let's go back to the card. So the 1981
Yes.
Sports Review magazine. Now that's a paper card out of a magazine, and
Yes. And I have a little show and tell
well,
for this
there we
one
go. And oh, you have
too.
one signed as well. Excellent. So
Yeah. So
they're a little
this
larger
is
sized, right?
it's a little larger size. You can see the holders
Yeah.
bigger, which, some collectors don't like oversized items, but there's no disputing that it's a 1981 issue, which makes it one of the earliest issues of Hulk
No.
Hogan that's able to be slabbed.
Right. Were they four up on a page, Rob?
Yes, there were.
Right, right. Because that's what it looks like. Like we have a lot of magazine cards where you get nine up on a page, but you can see by the size of that's more of a postcard size um, uh, example. And you can see from the picture that that's a very early picture of Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely. And the tough part about this card, and I'll put that in quotations,
We always say cards, like you're right, because I was the first guy to say, wait a minute, these are cards way back when, but I had to concede that guys like yourself had gotten them slabbed, and it's like, and they actually say wrestling cards. Yeah, I see. It's presented as a card, right?
Yeah, it has a biography on the back, but what makes this one unique is that the staples often would go inside the solid black line.
Right.
And so the highest grade that anyone could get with this card typically is just authentic. So if you have any kind of number grade for this magazine card of Hogan,
We're doing
you
well.
got a good one.
Oh,
And
nice.
I was fortunate to get a 8 with a Gem Mint auto on this one.
So that's probably the most valuable example of it kicking around, I would think, right?
Greg Knapp has a better copy,
Oh,
believe
does he
it or
really?
not. He does.
Yeah, we've never had Greg on the show. Greg's a lawyer down in Florida, and he's a massive.
Oh, Greg Knapp out of New
Oh,
Jersey,
sorry, Main Event
not Greg
Collectibles.
Weiss.
Sorry, I was thinking Weiss. Yeah, Greg Knapp is Main Event Collectibles, the Andre the Giant guy. He's got a better version of that, does he?
He does.
Right, right. Let's talk about the Poppies, or the Poppy. I call them Poppies, anyways. They've been very popular. The Hogan is obviously the card in that series. The Andre does well as well, and those were the ones that came with those figures out of Japan. So the next two, the Marusho and the Poppy that we're talking about, are both Japanese, and that's what you're going to find in this discussion. A lot of the early stuff of Hogan is from Japan. Yeah.
Mhm. So
All
here's
right,
an
so there we go.
example.
See, I knew I had the right guy to talk about this stuff because either you or David or like you mentioned, Greg, that you can pull up these kinds of things. So this
Yeah.
this is actually an inscribed autograph. So that's quite the piece as well, isn't it? Now,
Yeah, it's
I'll
pretty
really
amazing.
be surprised if you pop up a Marusho now.
Oh, do you want a Marusho?
He's going to do it too. Watch. There it is.
We didn't talk about doing all
No,
this.
we didn't. No,
Right.
no, we didn't. We didn't. I just told you I was going to mention a few Hogan cards off the top. I should have known. Yeah. So that one
Yes.
you
So
don't
the
see that.
Marusho,
You don't see the Marusho as much as the Popey, but it's
no.
gotten some big numbers. And how's that working in the grading world on those?
As far as
As far
the
as
highest
yeah, the
is an
the
8.
population and how high have they gotten?
Not too much, to be honest. And one of the ones that I'm most proud of is that this Marusho, it's only a 5,
Yeah, but it's really
but
gold. It looks beautiful.
it's a winner stamp,
Oh, really? So that's
which in
different than the back,
Japan,
right?
different than a back. So this is like an insert.
Hmm.
And so Japanese collectors in 1981 could redeem this for a prize at a
Right.
store.
I see.
So they would either take the card or they would put mark ink out in the back in a permanent marker, and then some of those are floating around. So for example, there's a 1974 Yamakatsu of Andre the Giant, and in a PSA 5, that card might sell for a couple $100. But recently one went on eBay for about 3,000.
Because of its rarity.
And so you can see that people are starting to recognize the scarcity
Right.
of a winner stamp.
Right. So we got one magazine, we got one figure. Now, how was the Marusho released? How did it come to market? It wasn't in a magazine. Was it in a pack or a box?
So the great thing about the Marusho is that it was actually pack pulled,
Really? So there
which
were
is
packs
an
put together.
allure for collectors. And
Wow.
for whatever reason, it's a really odd set in that there are tons of Tiger Mask cards in there, but they happen
I've seen the
to
Tiger Mask.
catch Hogan in his multicolor cape.
Right. Right. So then from there, Rob, from 1981, we go to 1982. We've got the Wrestling All-Stars, and that's the card, the iconic Hulk Hogan card that we see all the time that we're going to be giving out at the National as a sample, right? I'm sure you're going to whip one up, of course, and an autographed one, no less. The 1982 Wrestling All-Stars is the highest selling wrestling card that we've ever seen at $132,000 a little bit earlier this year. If you go into the top 10 wrestling cards of all time, I think there's three or four of the Wrestling All-Stars. So that is really the definitive card in our hobby, and the most valuable. But the 1982 Cosmos, like Tony started his store off selling his Hulk Hogan Cosmos,
Mhm.
and again, this is a card out of Japan, like the Marusho, and there it is. Again, if I would have asked you to do this, Rob, we probably wouldn't have pulled this off. But there it is. There's the Marusho, and it, it or sorry, there's the Cosmos. That one. where would that land overall? Like if I was to say, okay, setting the All-Stars as the top, what would be the number two? Would it be the Cosmos or would it be the Marusha or would it be the Poppy, do you think? Because that Cosmos does the flare as well. That does really, really well.
Yeah, and the difference is grades. So the
Yeah, of course.
Marusho, the highest grade is an 8. For the Popey Poppy, there are a couple tens out there,
And for the
and
Cosmos,
there's a Cosmos 10.
there is
So
one.
for a lot of collectors and big time collectors, it's all about the grade. So you could have great confidence when you buy a PSA 10 that there's not going to be a higher grade
Right,
ever.
right.
And so that might hold back the Marusho, even though I think there's some qualities of the Marusho that, for me personally, make it stand above
I
those
like
other
that
two.
card better personally, just because of the color of the cape and the robe and everything.
I
But
do too.
that like that Cosmos card, it's not the most beautiful card you're ever going to get, but it's a little smaller and it's got the heritage, it's got the pedigree, from Japan.
But they're all a little bit smaller. The Popey's a little bit smaller. The Marusho's
Are
smaller than
they're see, I don't have those, so I don't know. They're not 3.5 by 2.5, those ones, because
no, they're
the
slightly
All-Stars is.
smaller.
Well, in fact, the All-Stars are a little
The
bigger than normal, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, well, 82A has two different sizes, which is a whole different topic as well.
Well, as you know, I don't grade, right? So everything I got goes into a sheet, and there it sits for decades. And I recall when I got my All-Stars many, many years ago, it being tight, right? And once I put in the Andre and I put in the Hogan, it's like, well, these babies aren't coming out. Now I had no idea that one day they were going to be worth what they were worth, but I thought, well, it's just as well. You don't want to handle these anyways because these are nice looking cards. But that's interesting that
Hmm.
and the Cosmo. Well, I knew the Cosmo was a little bit smaller, but I wasn't aware of the Marusho or the Poppy for that matter, because just by eye it looks pretty close,
It's the closest to a standard trading card
right?
as far as the Japanese cards.
Now we also got in 1982, 1990, 1983, there was the BBM magazine and the Gong magazine cards, and there was a few different versions of Hogan's that turned up there. I don't have them all broken out separately, but let's talk about those from 1982.
Okay. So here is a 1982 Gong
Right.
of Hogan. And so it's a blank back, which I prefer some sort of biography or some kind of lettering on the back.
Now,
And
were
they're
they
kind
up
of,
on the page properly, or were they random on the page of the
what do you
magazine?
mean
Well,
properly? I don't know what properly means.
well, were they nine? Were they 333 to fill a page? Because
No, so they were just kind of randomly on that
right, that's what I
page.
want to get at. Some of those magazines all of a sudden would just have a square card, even on an angle, and we count those as being cards, even though, like you said,
But
that's a
there
blank
are
back.
dotted lines around
Perfect.
here, which
Right.
means it's intent to be cut
Correct.
around those dotted lines. And one of the things I would say is with stiff cardboard, it's a little bit harder to damage.
Right.
And with loose paper, like the 73 Andre, there's some flexibility in there that allows it to maintain its shape. But when you have a little bit thicker you know, thicker paper, but not cardboard, it's easy to put a bend
I
into this,
right.
into the stock. So getting a high grade of one of these is a nice win. And I'm fortunate to have an 8 of that.
Right. Well, you have top grades of all these things. That's why we call you the king, my friend. Um, let's talk before we go on to 83 about the 1982
Oh,
Kodachi Pro postcards.
yeah, and I'll show you just as far as the
Oh, yeah.
BBMs
Yeah, that's a BBM as well. That's what I mean.
here.
Those are placed random on the page. I've seen the magazine where those came out of.
Yeah. And this is kind of my favorite BBM just because
Yeah,
of
that's nice. It's a nice
Hulk
little thing.
Hogan yellow. Of course, Ichiban Hogan
Nice.
with
And
his hand in the
these
air.
these are all BBMs, not gongs.
Yes,
Yeah,
from 1982, 83, but all of the Hogans were released
right.
in 1982.
Right. And for those out there that don't know, BBM stands for Baseball Magazine, which in Japan was the predominant sports magazine. And of course, wrestling has always been big there. And, for many, many years, BBM was the manufacturer of cards of not just baseball or not just wrestling, but many other things as well. So I was
So
just,
actually, Paul, there's another. a 1982 Hulk Hogan out there in a PSA slab.
Okay.
And that is the portraits. And there's a guy from the San Francisco Bay Area that has three of them up on eBay.
And what's the size of it?
And this is a almost like a full size, almost like 8 by 10.
Pull it back towards you, Rob. Right. Nice. Is that's not the picture from the All-Stars? No, it's similar, but that's not it.
No,
Okay. And what's and they're not quite 8 by 10, you said.
correct. And it says Hulk Incredible Hogan, and these were 82.
Wow. Before we got off 82, I mentioned this before we got into the magazine cards about the Kobansha Pro postcards, which was also part of a magazine series. There you go. I like those. I have that set. Now they're not as rare, I don't think, as some of these other cards that we're talking about. You can still get them, and still get them at a fairly affordable price, but those cards are really nice. The one where Hogan's wearing the shades that say Hulk Hogan in green across the bottom there, that's one of my favorite sort of
Oh,
examples. Let me let, let me guess.
okay.
Let me guess. You've got that one too. Yeah, that's it. That's
Right?
that's one of my favorite. Yeah. So these are all from the Kabuncha Pros, and they too. Now, the way these worked, they were together as a group of 5 or 6 postcards in the middle of the magazine. So you get the magazine, and then you would take these guys out. Is it 5 or 6, Rob?
There's actually four.
Is it 4? Is that what it was? Was there two
Yep.
series or just the one? Because I have all those postcards, but I got them loose. I got them from a collector who got them out of a magazine and kept them.
Yeah. So this is the random one. This doesn't come in the same magazine as the other four.
Right. Because that magazine went for a long, there was a lot of those versions of those magazines with wrestling stuff in them, not just Hulk Hogan. If you go to wrestlingtradingcards.com or Price Guide and search those, you're going to see quite a few series of those. And the Hulk one is obviously the most valuable, but I think it should be in the discussion because even though, like I say, they're postcards, a very good example from 1982 again. So let's talk now.
Absolutely.
Let's go to 1983, and this is a set that you actually brought to the hobby not too long ago. We didn't have any record of on any of the checklist sites, and that's 1983 Toshi and Seikatsu. Am I saying that right? Seikatsu cards?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
That's how I would say it.
Tell us about them because you brought those to the hobby a couple years back, and where are they from?
So these are
House.
Japanese
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And so they actually came in school supplies. So it came with like a notebook and like a big, like, I forget what you call them. Sumo Minko man knows
Right,
the
right,
name
right.
of them in Japanese,
Those
but a
Menko cards.
large. And then they also came with this little card. And so one of the larger cards, I probably have it around here somewhere, would be something like this.
Right, right. Now, is
So
that
this
card or
would come with a
card
notebook.
is that card or paper?
So this is like a pl big plastic card,
Okay,
and it's larger. I actually got two of these signed by Hulk, which
nice.
I loved it because he has a bear hug on Andre.
Andre, yeah, of course.
There's also
And guys, that's long before WrestleMania 3.
oh yeah, I call this one
Yeah,
bikini hammock Hogan.
yeah, Beefcake Hogan.
Yes.
Yeah,
So these all came. So these Toshi and Sakatsu would come together
I
with
see.
the notebook.
Right, right.
Oh, actually, here's a notebook too. Gosh, I'm
So you've got the notebook.
prepared today.
Yeah, you are. Well, this is a real treat for everyone to get to see. Again, this is all vintage stuff of Hulk Hogan. This stuff is all worth a fortune, by the way. If you're fortunate enough to have one of these, never mind Rob England pulling out every single one you can imagine. But if you can ever
And this
find these out
one's
in the wild,
tough.
you grab them. Which one's that, Rob?
Yeah, so this is a Toshi and Sakatsu Hogan,
Right.
and he's often found with Stan Hansen, but these other variations do not come up very often.
No,
And I am missing one, which drives me a little bit crazy, and
I've been
that's
around these
the
parts for a while, and until you brought them to my attention, I'd never seen them before. I thought that when you showed them to me, it's like, are those not just part of the gongs or the BBMs? And you're like, no, this is a completely different release, completely different. So it was very cool. Um,
there's
for
a Thunder Lips in there too, which
Oh wow,
I think is incredible.
you don't have that one?
I don't.
No, that I'd like to see. Because I've often wondered if there is a Thunderlips card. I know there isn't in North America, but if the Japanese ever made such a thing, that'd be interesting.
They have one. It's a horizontal card.
Right.
So if anyone's watching this podcast, let me know if you
Yeah.
have it.
Well,
I'm
yeah, a
interested.
bunch of people will probably want that one, I would think. But
Yes.
before we get off of 1983, let's talk about those Japanese audio cassettes that not too long ago you sent me some of the cards that came with them. There was three or four different samples of those too. Right. So talk about those. What's the actual product? It's an audio tape.
Yes, and it's great because it'll have like Eye of the Tiger in there and Japanese like narration, and there's some inserts within those cassette tapes.
Right.
So here's one,
That's the image you sent that I put on
and
Price Guide because I thought that was such a great looking picture.
yeah, and you can see Hulk actually signed this one, which could be pretty rare that he had signed one. And
Right.
then this one is dual-sided,
Really? Front and back. Nice.
front and back.
Yeah, this is
So these
incredible.
are little inserts
Guys
into
out there,
these
you're not going to
cassettes.
see this stuff in one sitting. This is very fortunate to be able to see all these cards in one go. Let's keep moving. Let's go to 1984. The only samples I could find, but I think they deserve discussion, is the LJN figure cards. And that's a long series of figures, and there was a Hogan one. I don't have it, but there is a sample. Did you ever get into any of those figure cards?
I did not, so that's not one for display today. So
Yeah, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. The LJNs were the original, and those, insofar as figures, I think they're the cream of the crop for collectibles insofar as vintage figures. I know that if you happen to find a Junkyard Dog or a King Kong Bundy, they're quite rare. There's probably more Hogans kicking around because people kept them. But the
yeah, and I haven't really seen people grade those, even though they're
no,
meant to be collected.
hmm
And then the plastic on the back with the figure, of course, once that's ripped off and you cut around the dotted lines,
right,
you're probably just going to get authentic because you're missing paper on
right.
the card.
Right. And I have a bunch of those, not the Hogan one, but they're very hard to get nice, to get mint, 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 because they're the back of a piece of cardboard that was, like people back then in 85 weren't thinking about cutting this out so that 40 years later, Rob and Paul could be talking about them. You know what I mean? But um,
Yeah. I actually do have something from 1984 that is not checklist
okay, what do you have?
on a checklist site.
Okay.
And there's no reason why it can't be because I have the set.
Okay.
It's Shogakukan again from Japan.
Oh,
They're small little.
I've got those as 85. Is that a different thing? Yeah, that's different than
This is a
my
different
cards.
one.
Oh,
So
okay.
you could
Cool.
see it's part of game pieces
Okay.
with the cards here of Hogan,
I don't see the
Hansen.
Hogan. Where's the Hogan? Is he up in the corner there?
Oh, he's second from the top,
Okay.
that
Nice.
whole row,
Right. Oh, they're all hooked
which
at
is
the top.
awesome because it's 1984. He's body slamming Andre the Giant,
Right.
which we all know happened prior to WrestleMania 3. But these are the 12 cards from 1984. And so
Wow.
these are probably one of the smaller Hulk Hogan cards that you'll ever find.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
used Google.
they roughly look around the size of the Quaker Dips. Is maybe a little bit bigger than that.
Oh no, they're smaller.
Okay.
They're the size of about
Like a couple of inches, two by
two and a
nine inches.
half postage stamps.
Oh, I see. Okay. All
So
right.
they're quite small.
Well, you know what, Rob?
So
Now that you're talking about the Shogakukans, let's talk about the playing cards. They came out in 1985, um,
correct.
and they're an actual playing card set. And I'm sure you have
Yes.
a couple of those. And those are really, really nice as well. Again, very, very
Am
hard
I
to.
getting glare? There
Yeah,
you go.
that's okay. Yeah, we can see that quite nicely. And that's a whole set of 52 playing cards, like with all suits and with jokers and the whole nine yards. Now, did they come out in a box, Rob, or how were these cards brought to market? As
So those are a magazine insert.
oh, really? Oh, that's
Yes.
interesting. Interesting.
And extremely rare. I've only seen two of them come up on eBay ever, and I purchased both of them.
I'd heard of them.
So
I used to be, you were on the, you and I can't remember your buddy's name, you used to have your site way back when, the X titles. So it was just text of all the
Steve
different
Timke.
Timke, that's right. We just I've never had the pleasure of actually meeting or chatting with Steve before, but you guys for years and years, along with Tony, were the only places to go to find, and you had stuff there that Tony didn't have. And I remember specifically those playing cards and trying to research those. So you guys were doing this a long time ago. But let's carry on with 1985, and we've talked about a whole bunch of things with Hulk Hogan. But people still consider the 1985 Topps OPC 86 Scanlon the rookie Hogan card because it was the one that was widely distributed around the world. We're not going to get into that discussion now, but that if you take the All Stars as Hogan card number one, I think it's safe to say that the 1985 Pro Wrestling Stars would be Hogan number two. And there's two cards of Hogan. We've got the number one card, the yellow one, and it's the 15 or 16 is the blue one, identical image. Um,
Hmm.
but when people think of Hogan cards, I think they think of the Topps 85 um, as one of the more common ones, yeah, from back in the day.
And I would agree with that. And here's the little sale sheet for it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so this is when you know that wrestling started going mainstream
Yeah,
as far as for tops and packs and a lot of
yeah, that
people's
was
first experience
exactly
into wrestling.
mine. The first wrestling card I ever bought, Rob, was a pack of Pro Wrestling Stars OPC up in Canada. I was a hockey guy and I liked wrestling, and I bought a pack. And I had no idea when I bought that pack at that moment what would happen after that. But yeah, so that's 1985. We've also got the 1985 Wrestling Superstars magazine, which is another common collectible. That's the magazine card, and I'm sure you got those. You've had those graded before.
The Wrestling All-Stars,
Yeah, the All Stars, the magazine.
1985 Wrestling All-Stars, the
Yep,
O'Quinn.
yep,
So,
that's right. O'Quinn Publishing. And
so this,
yours, mine when I bought them cut were cut pretty shittily. Whereas when I got
yeah,
yours, Rob, they're impeccable. Like you've managed to slice them just so, in such a way that they really look nice as a set. And they grade fairly well, don't they?
they do. Although that Hulk Hogan that I just showed you is a pop one and none higher. I
Right.
think there'll be some others that surface in the future, but that just shows that it's a tough card. It's near the spine, and many of the top rows throughout the magazine don't have a lot of white border. So you may find some Hogans out there that have zero.
And what sells for more? The magazine vintage not being cut up, or like I did, if I happen to find a set from someone that had cut them up some time ago? Is the magazine
No, cutting them up and getting a nice high grade, you're going to be able to maximize value.
right? Because if you get a high enough value,
Raw prices are not going to match a nice high grade.
but to get a magazine in mint condition, you would think that in and of itself, like having a magazine with the cards in there uncut, would be desirable.
But mint condition is pretty subjective because you could have a mint condition magazine, and if you don't have top border, your
Right, right.
value isn't going to be there.
Right,
I ended up buying a magazine because, and I actually haven't even cut it all up yet. And I was super excited because there was some nice borders on some tough cards that I need to improve my set. And then within the cards, there's some waviness.
right.
So I'm going to be limited as far as my potential high grades.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Couple more from
But it
85.
had border. Mhm.
Sorry, say again?
But the magazine that I purchased had the nice border.
Right, right. Couple more from
But
85.
once in hand, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Oh, okay. Because it wasn't sliced evenly.
Yeah,
Right. A couple more from 85 that are quite rare. One is the 1985 Topps 3D cards. And
yeah.
we believe that they never fully made it to market. They were a test run and a few of them were made, but they turn up every once in a while and they do very well also. Did you ever get your hands on one of those?
I did, and I let mine go
Did
as
you?
far as in trading. A little hard to store.
Yeah,
Beckett will grade them in a
right. Because
humongous slab.
they're contoured on the back. They're not flat on the back, are they? They're sort of the
Oh yeah, they're literally like 3D. So the
yeah,
thickness of
yeah.
them, they don't look the best slabbed, but obviously it's an amazing collectible because the production run is quite limited.
Right. Right. I don't think they went into the mainstream. I think that they were made, and then a certain number of them were made as a test run or what have you. Like maybe like the Wondorama's the first test run that they did, and there was very few of them. Like my 95 Paninis, I don't believe that they went to market in a big way. I think there was a test run of those sets, and that's it. That's all that got out there because they just don't turn up frequently enough. And these 3Ds, they just don't turn up often enough for them to have made it into the mainstream. The last one I'm going to mention is the sticker, the 1985 prismatic sticker. Um, David Peck got the Magnum TA version of that recently, but there's a Hogan in that set, and hard to find, but they're quite popular as well.
Yeah, so here's a few. And the one set that you're referencing is like WMMC, I believe.
Mhm.
But these are not the same. But here's a couple
No, that's
of the
different.
quick.
That's different than the Magnum TA. Those are the ones that are die cut around.
Right. But Hogan wasn't in that set that
No,
you're
no.
referencing.
Oh,
He
really?
was not.
So the Hogan that I have my notes on is for those ones that you have.
So yeah. And so
Right.
then, of course, with Mr. T.
Yes, that's the one I've seen before. That's the one I've seen.
But
But there's one of Hogan by himself as well, isn't there?
yeah, there's another one with him by himself with the belt. And
Yes.
there's another one with him with Wendy Richter as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
But there seems to be a flood of fakes and recent reprints.
Oh, really?
So I would just be cautious for new folks out there purchasing those on eBay and then making sure that you're buying something that's legitimate and authentic.
And if anyone out there is ever not sure, go onto Twitter, put it up there. There's always a Rob England or a David Peck or a Paul or a Tony or a Chuck that's going to be able to help you with this stuff. So don't go and spend big unless you're sure, especially on this vintage stuff, because as it gets more valuable, people start making contraband, and the next thing you know, you've bought something that isn't real. So that's a good point. And it's good that you mentioned that that card has that, because we're going to see more and more of that. We obviously know about the contraband all stars that have come over the year, but they're very easy for us to spot, for the guys that live and breathe and eat these things all day long. So um, we're going to wrap this up soon. 1986, we had those Monty Gum cards, the ones that came from the Middle East, I think it was Saudi Arabia, the ones that had the poor printing, and there was Hogan in there. I think there's one with Hogan and Muhammad Ali, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
And Sylvester Stallone.
and Sylvester Stallone, that's right. 1987, we had the Circle K Supermatch cards. Those were food cards. There was a Hogan version. And by this time, when we get into 85, 86, 87, this is when Hogan's run is in full force, right? After WrestleMania 1, 85, 86, by the time we get to Silverdome in 87, Hogan is a cultural phenomenon. So these cards already, the food cards. We'll get into 1987, the Super Circle K Supermatch cards. In 1998, the ice cream cards start, the gold bonds, and there's a Hogan in the first few of those. Um, then we get into 1989, the Classic Series. In the Classic Series, people think they're from 1990, but there's a 1989 version, so that would be the earliest version, and there's tons of Hogan. So again, like I say, once we get from like 86 on, Hogan is a household name. So it's not, we're not finding these Japanese cars that are rare from the beginning of the decade.
Right. And
And
then often you'd see him as far as graded packs.
sure,
So he
sure.
was always the face
Yeah, and
of
just to
graded
point out,
packs.
that's the 85, that's the 87. And again, it was released by Topps up here in Canada. They were made by OPG. In fact, OPG only made the second set. And then a year later in 86, the Scanlens came out in Australia or New Zealand? Australia.
Australia,
Yeah.
yes.
And those are harder to find. They're a little thicker cards. But again, if you're into Hogan, or even if you're into any of, the vintage sort of WWF guys from that era, that's where you're going to find. The last one I'm going to mention, and then you're going to spring a surprise on us, is the 1989 Market Scene Superstar cards, and they're out of New Zealand as well. And there was a Hogan in that, and that was around the time of the movie with Zeus, because there's a Zeus in that set. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so there's Hogan from the movie, and then there's the signature Hogan. You got that one signed as well, and you got some
Yep.
nice grades on those, Rob. Fantastic, all the stuff that you have in your collection, I must say. So, guys, that gives you an idea, and thank you, Rob, for not only talking about them, but for giving us real life concrete examples. There's no one else in this hobby that would have sort of the knowledge and these cards. So, before we sign off, you got something exciting to talk about a new set that no one knows about. So, Rob, let's hear it.
Yes. So I didn't know when I would share this, but there's actually a Hulk Hogan collectible that's not on WrestlingTradingCards.com or your price guide as well, which serves as a great checklist as well. But in Japan, there was a set that started in 1980 and went through 1981 that has a numbered Hulk Hogan in it. So it's a magazine insert. It has a biography on the back. And I think it's just going to be super cool to see a PSA slab that says Hulk Hogan 1980, 1981, like BBM portrait. So this is it.
Wow.
So it's part of a 24 card set.
Now there's a chance that you think this one came out in 81, not 80, right?
It definitely came out in 1981. It came out in July, and we know that because it's a magazine insert, or
Okay.
it could have came out in June, with a July date on it. But it has
It
an
says 80 on the
amazing
back.
back as well, which I really, really love any kind of collectible that has a biography on the back. And that to me, that's a little bit limiting as far as the 1982 Gong or the other portrait of Hogan that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's that they don't have a back, but
But that
you can put on
does that say 1980 anywhere on that back?
it does not, but I have all the magazines.
Right. And the magazine
So
say 81.
yeah,
Right.
and it has his height, his weight, where he's from, talking about his rise to superstardom. And I know as far as an oversized collectible, there are some collectors that think, well, that doesn't meet my definition of a card, right? But I think we're transitioning into a different era in collectibles with PSA grading programs,
Yeah.
magazines. Even if you look at,
Tickets.
tickets,
Yeah.
from the 80s with Hogan for the International
Some of
Grand
those are
Prix.
beautiful. Like those are nice collectibles in and of themselves. If you look at that,
Yeah.
like
So
that's
I think we're seeing a shift where you're going to see these oversized items, if it's something collectible, that they're going to increase in value.
right.
Even like the 1981 Superstars Hogan, people, it's going to be limited from the All-Stars, but people will pay good money for that.
Yeah.
And so I think, of course, as I do, I start
Buy multiple
seeing
cards.
something that I think's a bargain and just keep buying
Well, you did that with a rock sticker once, and we all know how that worked out. You know.
them. So I think it's a winner. Unfortunately, this was in a stack that I wanted Hulk to sign,
Right.
which
You
would
didn't.
mean that it would probably be potentially a one of one item today.
Right.
But I just
And before we wrap it up, we'll leave it on that point that Hulk isn't around to sign anything more. Now, the man did sign a lot, especially for Leaf. There's a lot of stuff that he signed, but he can't sign anything else. So, all this stuff, those four pieces, you're not going to get those signed anymore. And that's one of the true sadnesses of, what notwithstanding, the man
yeah,
passed.
and I think at one point people said that Hulk signed so much that he devalued his signature. But I think right now, when you look at eBay and some of the prices realized,
For holding.
he is such a pop culture phenomenon
Yeah.
that, you know, I seem to think that how can you sign enough for someone that basically
I agree.
impacted
I used to be
hundreds of millions of people?
I used to be the mindset that Leaf, like every release for a spell there, you were getting a Hogan or a Flair autograph, and they must have just signed a roll that Leaf had. But they're holding, you know what I mean? Like if you go to any of those products, any of that Leaf stuff, the early Leafs original wrestling, and then they had the dedicated wrestling set with Hogan signatures, they're still getting top dollar. And this is stuff that came out like in within the last 10 years, not nothing like the stuff that you're showing now. Um, and that's still one of the most popular things. People would line up the beat shop for hours to get these vintage things signed, and Hogan signed them all, So he's created a wonderful sort of repository of collectibles, but that's it. It's not getting any bigger. And I think the myth of Hulk Hogan is going to get bigger over time. Like notwithstanding Terry Bollea the man, Hulk Hogan the performer is one of the greatest of all time. And I think subsequent generations are going to learn that. And collectors, new collectors are coming online all the time. One day you're going to get a guy with a lot of money that's going to find Rob England and make you an offer he can't refuse. That's where these things
I'm
go.
not ready yet. I'm a
I know.
collector
Yeah, I
at
know.
heart.
I'm the same way. I've never sold a card, but you never say never, right?
Right.
Right. So that's it. Rob, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for sharing all this stuff about Hulk Hogan. Once again, rest in peace, Hulk Hogan, one of the greats, sadly missed. I mean, particularly here in the wrestling card community, specifically amongst guys like me, Rob, David, the guys that grew up watching Hulk Hogan, and he was, like the glue to wrestling for me. I have such fond memories of going to the Maple Leaf Gardens during that initial run. I went to 80% of the show, so I must have seen him at least half a dozen times, if not more, and the crowd always went nuts. I'll leave on this. WrestleMania 6 at Skydome, when Warrior pinned Hulk, is the loudest crowd I've ever experienced ever for anything. And I used to go to a lot, I'm a musician, so I used to go to a lot of rock concerts. I've never ever heard anything like that in my life, you know. So Rob, thanks for coming on. Guys out there, Hulk Hogan, rest in peace. Thanks for watching. We'll catch up with you guys soon.